So then let's call to order at 6:02 or 3, depending on which, or 5, depending on what clock we look at. Zayla, you can pick what time it is at your house.
Okay.
And then public comment period. Any public who have comments on things outside the agenda? Jim, do you have a comment? No? Okay. David, comment? No comment. Okay, great. Anyone have any additional items to add to the agenda? Okay, great. Can we review and approve the minutes from the September 14th meeting? Did anyone read those minutes?
Yep.
I did.
You did?
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Okay, I hear a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Correspondence. We didn't have any mail. I did get a few things from the Lewis Creek Association this month. About a few different events they're having. Maybe I'll make a note to myself to forward those to you. Just like general, they're doing a couple different events, I think, and things are. I'll forward that to you. I forgot to do that. Okay, cool. But that was all. Nothing official event. Just those I forgot to send you. Okay, cool. And then that leads us to old business. First is Conservation Commission membership. So we should be all set with the website now so that we can list all of the terms. And we have moved, now we have a vacant space. When Noelle left, there was, she got left on for some time, and so now that's been changed. So I have that space available, and I did put out something on Front Porch Forum a few days ago. So if you know anyone, let them know we have an official space, and honestly, we're all, because you never know when things are gonna come up, we're always very happy to have a surplus of people interested. So just always keep those, when you meet someone new, I'm always like, oh, do you live in town? Do you want to know about conservation? So if we all do that, we're sure to find some members, right? Comments on that? Questions, thoughts, continued discussion? No? Okay, great. Then number 2, updating wildlife maps. Do you want to discuss Sophie first, or do you want to do the update with David since David's here? Or are you here for both, David, I guess? Doesn't matter. David, why don't you tell us about what you're up to?
Sure. Okay. So I am in the middle of
working. Oh, can you remind us who you are?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm David Goldsmith. I'm a conservation biology super senior at Middlebury. It's my last semester. Middlebury College, and for my independent research, I'm going to be putting up camera traps, these guys, in Memorial Park in Bristol and in Sycamore Park. And it's mostly what you guys are interested in learning about those parks, but specifically, I'm planning on kind of where crossings are that Sophie outlined in her tracking report. And then also discovering or looking into the habits and the diversity of what animals make up those parks. So the current plan is to put them up Wednesday of next week. I just got all 16 and everything for them. So those are pretty much ready to go. And the plan is basically to have a grid system set up throughout both parks. So we can kind of standardize what's going on, and then several cameras at the points where Sophie thought there would be the highest traffic, and then maybe some other spots in the perimeter where it seems like there are going to be some wildlife crossings based off of like tracks, I can tell based off of movement of plants in the area and stuff like that. And I'll be running those for approximately, I think, 7 weeks. I can provide updates as those come out. I should be going every week or so just to check up on the cameras and switch out the SD cards and stuff like that.
How long did you say you're going to do it?
I believe about 7 weeks, perhaps 6.
Okay.
And David and I walked Sycamore Park last week, was it? And then he just walked Memorial with Alex a couple days ago.
Yeah. And thank you again for that, Carolyn. And Alex, if he's nearby.
He's running late. He'll be here soon.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm happy to answer any questions about it. The other plan that I was having, those should go up when I put the cameras up, but I'll be making some posters just with some general information about the cameras and kind of why they're there. A little bit of community outreach with that, and try to get people interested in biology.
Is that something that you'd want to put in the kiosk, or just something that you're gonna have on like a plastic sheet that you're gonna like tie to a tree or something?
I would love to put it in the kiosk if that's okay. And then at Memorial Park, I think just by that entrance to the left of the sign, you could put one up. There's no kiosk there that I know of.
No, there's no kiosk memorial. I don't know how you put things in the kiosk. Does anyone know? Is there a key?
I don't think it's locked.
No.
Sycamore is no longer locked. You should be able to just slide it.
Perfect. So I
Do you
can send
worry about, if you put signs near the cameras, attracting attention to the cameras and therefore theft?
Yeah, great question. So along with the cameras, I also purchased some camera locks. Those pretty much go through the back of the camera and secure it to the tree, or I might have some on cinder blocks if there's no like good tree nearby. So perhaps someone takes the cinder blocks and the camera, but I'm hoping not. And then in terms of the signage, I was thinking of something similar, like would it cause people to go investigating potentially? But it's also pretty good data to have, like kind of who's in the park and when. And then specifically, like I'm interested in seeing how human interactions and presence influence animal presence. See if maybe they're avoiding, when humans are in the park. But yeah, I believe they'll be safe. It is definitely a concern, but
More at Sycamore than Memorial, I imagine.
yeah.
Did you
Also-
tell us how many cameras you're putting up?
So 10 cameras at Memorial Park and 6 at Sycamore. It's basically normalized so that I took it by acreage. So it'd be the same density in both parks.
I know you had told me that you were concerned about like how there was like interesting mowing patterns and different areas in Sycamore, and that you said that the grid might not work, but then it seems like you think the grid will work. So what's your thinking there?
Yeah, I have been going back and forth on that the past couple of days. I think I might do a preliminary like sense of the grid for Sycamore Park, and then give myself, maybe a 10-foot radius within that point and try to set it up so hopefully there should be like a way to put it in a good spot but still have it kind of gridded. If not, I think I'm gonna go for spots where it seems like there are a lot of animal crossings. But not a lot of like mowing activity, if that makes sense.
And I don't know when it's going to be. When does it stop getting mowed for the year? Right?
Yeah,
It's
I had that
probably-
question. Does anybody know?
Yeah, I have no
I can't
idea.
remember.
But maybe he could talk to Meredith. Would Meredith know? She probably would, right? So
Yeah.
the recreation director, she's the one that helped issue those permits. She'd be the one who would know when mowing is done for the year.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. I'll reach out to her then.
Yeah, it could just be a good data point to have for reference for Sycamore. So you have to imagine that's a big disturbance. It's like very loud and they're all over the park, right?
Yeah.
Cool, that sounds awesome. And then a segue maybe, but also like still tying to David. He got stuck in traffic and was late to our meeting. And in the meantime, I was looking at my phone in the parking lot, and that's when I saw Sophie's stuff come in. So I read it right there in the parking lot, and I was like, ah! So we like went out and we found one of the high priority spots is the bridge right there. So first thing we got out of the car and we ran and we looked right at the bridge and we're like, oh, this is the spot, and thought about putting cameras up there. So is that going to be in addition to the 6 in the park? You'll put some up in that spot then, or what were you thinking for that?
Yeah, I think so. I think within that specific park, there might be 4 cameras within the park and then 2 cameras somewhere on the perimeter. So underneath that bridge, there are 2 sides. I'm thinking I'll do cinder blocks and maybe get one on each side. The other alternative is to have one on one side that can kind of has access to the entirety of the area. And then maybe put another one up on top of the bridge in an area it looks like animals might be crossing. I think that's going to be a game time decision when I'm there next.
Okay, cool.
But if anyone has any, I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah, I would worry about, and there is some graffiti under the bridge. There might be people that hang out there. I don't really know. If that's, just lock it to your cinder blocks and make it a pain to take, I guess. But I don't really know. Thoughts?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
How time consuming is it to look at all of the footage?
Okay. Good question. It's pretty time consuming. There are a couple apps that I need to look into that kind of help process it. I think there has to be something with AI that would help me read them all. So it's a question to look into.
So I know this is out of the realm of this project, but maybe just to store. There are wildlife cameras, obviously, all over the world. And I follow one in Kenya. And they ask for citizens to watch the footage and record how many giraffes, how many elephants, how many zebras. And it's kind of fun because you're sitting here in your home in the snow and you're counting elephants in the screen. And whether that's really just PR to make us feel like we're invested, and in fact, someone else is doing all of that officially. But one thought would be to have other people look at it, because it'd be pretty cool for somebody who's never seen a bobcat or a bear or a beaver or a weasel cross the screen and have to figure out what it is.
Yeah, I would, if anyone was interested in looking at the raw images and checking them out, I'm happy to share them. It would probably be a large file, but the hope is that it's not like one continuous video, it's triggered by motion detectors. And then I can switch within the settings if I want it to be a video, if I want it to be photos taken 5 seconds apart, 3 seconds apart, anything like that. So ideally, if I do a good job and I don't put it in front of waving graphs, which was a big when I was learning how to do this, it will only take photos of those or anything that crosses in the area.
Alexa told me that getting waving grass is a good learning process because then you don't put it by grass again.
Yeah.
I'd definitely be interested in helping you look through all the footage.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Alan. I'll shoot you an email after this.
Okay.
Do these cameras have a flash on them? In other words, will it detect or record things at nighttime?
Yeah, so it has some like a night mode. It's not really a flash that shines a light. Last year, actually, I put up some cameras at the Knoll on Middlebury's campus, the little organic garden, and all of my best images were taken at night because that's also just when there's the most animal activity. So I got like bobcats, I got a hawk catching a mouse. So yeah.
Yeah, I would expect most of your sightings of those kind of things would be in the evenings.
Oh yeah, David, I was at Sycamore with my class this week, and that spot I showed you is like where we go for the 140 class. And across the bank, we saw something. The students kept saying it's a river otter. I'm like, maybe. But it was really beautiful and sleek. I was like, is it a mink? I don't know. We only saw it for just a second. We got really excited about it though. And then everyone was like, oh, it was this, it was that. I'm like, wow, it was a unicorn, So like, I'm very excited, but we definitely saw it was running up along like the eroding bank across the river. It was pretty cool.
Ooh, okay.
We just flushed it out by having, so many students there all talking at the same time. It was like, I'm out of here, Yeah, but we still don't see animals with them because they're so loud. So it's kind of cool to see. I was thinking, if you're trying to get a large number of files to Helen, you might try putting something on like a Google Drive folder and then sharing it with her. I think that we have pretty huge Google Drive space, if that might be an option for you to shuttle some images to her.
Perfect. That's a great idea.
Something to explore.
Yeah, I'll get to that.
She also might have credentials to go onto OneDrive or something too and just straight use Middlebury's resources since she has an EDU with them.
Yeah, I imagine that's at least where they'll go first if OneDrive will cooperate with me. Otherwise, there's a chance I get a hard drive to store them off to, and then I could make a copy and transfer it onto something else and drop it off when I'm in Bristol next.
Cool. Okay, so what about Sophie's stuff? I sent that around. What'd you think?
It was interesting.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
It's great what she said to you.
David, what did you think about it? Do you think it's useful for you, for the lab? What are your thoughts?
I think some of it is a lot of the highlighted areas look to me like roads, which I would be curious, like how could we minimize like roadkill basically by like investigating those spots. And really, I think it's a good base to use the camera traps and kind of get more of a confirmation on those Animal Crossings. I'd also really be curious to see like if Middlebury students want to do it in the spring when there's still snow on the ground to do some further tracking in those spots and see if there's year to year. But yeah, I'm definitely like looking at her maps and trying to place my cameras based off of those.
Good. And yeah, I think that'll be really useful for you and then also for those students in the spring seminar. You had mentioned as well that you were thinking of tracking with Alex. Is that right?
Yeah, briefly. I think if there's snow in December, then I'd be interested in doing it. I just don't know I mean, who knows with Vermont weather, what's going to happen in December. I think January I won't be doing the project, but I mean, it sounds fun and he was really sweet. So I might just go out there for fun with him and I'll type up something anyway, but I won't be doing the research in a official capacity.
Sure. Well, he'll be busy the first snowfall, I believe. Is that right, Zaylee? That's for prime hunting. So.
Yeah, like
you
no
got out
falls in
with
November are out.
When I went out with Sophie for half the day,
yeah,
her data collection is road-based. I mean, she was driving around, noting what seemed to be a rich place. And if it looked promising, she'd get out of her car and wander, up a stream or through a field, but not very far. So I think the way she surveyed is going to be reflected in the maps that we see. But in a way, I feel as though, maybe I should go back and read our mission. I think signage on roads might be a viable outcome of this, that we know these are areas that have wildlife. Let's put up some signs. Whether signs do any good or not, I think people could do some research to find that they do or don't. I don't really know, but it would at least raise awareness.
I feel like I listened to an NPR thing on whether or not road signs work, and what the conclusion was. So that's unhelpful.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I mean, the standard joke is that the animals don't read the signs, so it doesn't really matter. But that's funny. I heard something like that too. It might have been even Brave Little State.
Yeah,
They decide where to put road signs, wildlife signs.
I kind of feel like I listened to that as well. We talked about it, and the conclusion was that they don't work particularly well. But they were talking.
but there was
explicitly
something helpful about them. I remember that they didn't work the way that we would assume they worked, but there was something helpful.
Well, my memory is that they don't work particularly, like deer crossing signs they're everywhere. So people stop taking note of them, but you hit a moose crossing sign, you might pay a little bit of attention, there's this, in a lot of places there's a, deer on a sign every 150 yards down the road, and it kind of blends into the background. I think that was what they were talking about in that, if I remembered it right, which makes sense.
I'd also be curious on how signage with the exact number of animals hit in the past year, just to kind of put it and to bring it more forward as to how prevalent the accidents actually are. Would be the other thing was just going back a little bit to Sophie's data. I'd be curious what she based the high priority, moderate priority, and like low priority spots on because there wasn't really a description. I just wasn't sure like how subjective it was. Just be curious to hear more of her background on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd wondered about that as well. That'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, if we have other questions, we can compile several questions about the data set and send that to her and ask. If we have other things, or think of things that pop up as you're reading it, or as people are working with that, you know, if you're in your lab, we could think of a list of questions and send those to her. And that would be a good idea. Anything else about Sophie's data, wildlife corridor? Alex, I know that we missed you a little bit. If there was anything you wanted to ask David about or anything, we talked about how you went out to Memorial together, and that you might go do some trekking or something at some point, maybe in December,
Yeah,
January.
we were talking about that. That would be cool, and that could be that'd be an interesting, we might get some information that would be interesting to combine with the camera trap surveys. Worst case scenario was just fun.
Yeah, and then David said we were talking about maps, and I said, well, we're gonna find a map, and we found something, and then in the end, it sounded like there was some orange flagging up around what you thought were the park boundaries. Is that right?
Yeah, there is, and I'm not sure how accurate it is, but there is vaguely along the property line, there is some flagging tape. I don't know who put it there, and I don't actually know that it's been there forever. At least I don't actually remember running into it before. But I've only ever been on that corner of the park is like, a year ago. So I don't know, I could have just missed it or forgot about it.
Sure.
But I'd imagine it's the property owner.
Yeah, I know Porter's been up there a bit. Randy Duran did a survey up there for us one time. I don't know who's up there.
There is, I always want to look at the map because there's a Vermont Family Forest piece right there too, and I don't know if I kind of think their property doesn't extend onto that side of the road, but a lot of that is a no-go zone. So they may have flagged it off for that reason, but I think usually they have signs actually on the trees telling you why you're not supposed to go in. So I don't think that actually is what it is. Might just be the owner.
Okay, well, I'm glad you found useful orange flagging, regardless. Okay, and then David is going to keep working, and then you'll pop in and tell us some of what you found in a month. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah.
That'd be great. And then I'm also making a story map, web-based virtual field trip experience for my class about the stream work that I do with my courses. And part of that is the New Haven River at Sycamore Park. And so David is gonna hook us up with some of the best images we're gonna stick on that website as well. So we'll have a home where students and community members can see some of his favorite images, and we can talk about the food chain and what lives in that area and stuff that we've documented, which will be kind of nice to have something visible that's out there. As well as I hope we can think of a way, once you have some of those, like you said, Helen, about people would be interested, like how can we make a poster for town hall meeting day with some great images, or I don't know what, but I think it'd be really cool to think of something we could do that people could see. So we'll keep thinking about that, I think.
Cool.
All right, great. Okay, we're done. Are we done there? Do we feel done there?
I had a couple questions for David. So it used to be if you had in your car some sort of a CD player or so, if somebody wanted to try and take it, they could take it, but then they'd have to enter a code in order to get it to operate. So it discouraged people from even trying to steal those. Is that the case with these game cameras? Because I got to imagine they're expensive. I know my neighbor put some up on my property. One was taken a long time ago and he wasn't too happy about it. I was just trying to think of how to have a way that they're maybe more secure.
Yeah, I can look into that with the SD cards. I haven't actually done that yet. I feel fairly confident about the locks. The one thing with them is that it locks through the back, so you can still open up the camera and like mess with the settings, even if it's locked to the tree, which is like kind of a design flaw. I don't really know who is in that planning process. But Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. I believe there should be. I know there's a little thing on the SD card that says lock, so I'll look into that. Thanks for the tip.
And the other question was going to be about photo images versus sort of continuous video. And I know lights work with, the motion detectors, and John mentioned the, light and a lot of activity that's happening at night. So does that help with not having to scan, volumes of material to look for images of animal activity?
Yeah, absolutely. If it were a continuous video, it would be quite difficult to look through everything. In the past, when I've done it like right, sometimes you'll get like random images if the sun's in the way and the sun comes like right into view. But generally, like if you do it right, then from my experience, it's been that you won't get animals. So
The last question is, I think if we refer to this in the public, maybe there's a way to describe it as, a tracking.
Oh, John,
We lost you there, John.
Oh, how's it now?
you're just
You're back.
very quiet. Maybe you could like just yell in your mic more.
I'll just turn up the volume. Is that a little better?
We'll just listen really carefully, okay?
All right, I turn up the volume as loud as it will go, and apologize photo, and I'm not sure why that's the case. I don't have an opportunity to test it other than these meetings, so I'll work on that in the future. But back to just referring to the whole process of uh, the project. Maybe we just describe it as animal tracking and don't just sort of mention cameras, just because there are going to be a lot of people in the woods with hunting season, and I do think those things have a way of disappearing, and we certainly want to have as much success and less drawbacks. But that's just up for discussion, I suppose, of how to communicate that. And then I think that the communication in the kiosk, that's an easy one, because I kind of maybe I'm making a bad correlation here, but I don't think the type of people that are stealing cameras read kiosks. So maybe that's the case, maybe not. But ultimately, we'll find out how it goes, and then just with Front Porch Forum again, that could tip people off. So if we just talk about, we have a project going on with animal tracking, it doesn't, just not alluding to cameras, I think it just keeps it a little bit more sort of under the radar.
yeah, I'm curious what everyone else thinks about locking or about putting up a sign if it's a real concern that they might get stolen. I can also show you. I have the locks in my room. I can go grab them if you're curious to look at them. But yeah, what do you guys think about putting signage up?
I guess I don't totally know. Yeah, I don't know how likely it is to increase the chances of them getting lifted. Like that is definitely a concern. Trail cameras disappear, and that's very much a thing. But how much the kiosk sign is going to affect that, I don't know. Also, for what it's worth, David, I know getting them up high and aiming them down a little bit seems to work really well for keeping them out of people's pockets. Just because, like, folks just kind of look around at eye height most of the time, and like having them up a little bit off the ground with an angle is a pretty common tactic for areas that they might get stolen. That seems to work pretty well. Yeah,
How high?
Like, what was that?
How high would you do that?
Just like 8 feet off the ground, outside of like people's like general like peripheral vision and stuff. That seems to work. You gotta, I mean, it might not work in all spots, for what you're trying to capture a picture of either, but tilting them downwards a little bit, if they have enough range to still pick things up on the ground for a decent spread, it can work pretty well.
Yeah, I can look into that. There might be some kind of like portable step stool I can strap to my backpack when I go out there.
Yeah.
It will be tough. I'm 5'6", so it would be tough for me to get the off.
Shimmy on up there and strap it on.
If you get one that's about 4 feet tall, which is probably pretty portable, that puts you up about, working height 9 feet thereabouts.
I'll check that out, and I'll also look into the research to see like how. The only thing I worry about with that is will it minimize the amount of photos I get, because at that point the range of the infrared that like is the motion detector would be a bit limited. Instead of being pointing parallel to the ground, it would be more at an angle, and I don't know, I just worry a little bit about that.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's more of a
it's sort of
half and half, meaning that, in certain locations it's doable, and in others, you don't have a tree and you're back to the cinder block. So it's kind of a, an individualized camera decision of placement. Not wanting to make your job more challenging, just trying to think of the security of the cameras and is the main objective.
No,
I think
hear
you'll
you.
actually end up collecting data on what cameras remained and what cameras disappeared. And if all the cameras at chest height are gone, well, anyone who follows in your footsteps will have learned from that experience.
Yeah, when you put the camera in, why not turn around and take like your cell phone photo and just say like camera 1, and you can see the placement. And then if it's not there the next time, it'll be like, that'll be data for future students coming out to go, okay, at Sycamore Park, we're losing cameras. Like, then we would know, right? Hopefully it's not a problem. Hopefully this is moot. We'll see.
Agreed. It is also good to raise money, but
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, great. And then speaking of money, I still am waiting to hear about an invoice from Sophie. We were invoiced for this recently, and I'm not sure what the date on that will be. If it will fall with the date for that work last fiscal year when the work was completed, or if she'll be dating that for this year. I'm hopeful it'll be last year. We'll sort of have to see how that goes. There may be which year's budget it goes on may be a pain because we approved it for last year.
Can't you just ask the invoice be dated when she did the study?
Yeah, I did ask her about that and she hasn't replied. So I just looked at my email again just to make sure. So she hasn't replied to that when I asked. So we'll, just so you know, that's on the horizon. I'm just trying to follow up with that. Okay, cool. So we've been talking about the parks.
Wait, I think David has the lot that he wants to show us.
David.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to bring it out. It's a fair, I mean, you could cut it, but it is a fairly thick wire, and each one is the one thing though, the main flaw is that every lock, I have 16 locks, each of them has the same key, which feels, and you can order it on Amazon, each one for about $20.
Oh. I just feel like now we're dealing with criminal masterminds. Isn't like most things are stolen because they're just convenient, right? I don't.
Yeah, I bet like stealing cameras is often just like opportunists. They're walking past, they realize they're getting caught on it, and so they take it.
Yeah, let's just hope for the goodness of Bristolites, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I wouldn't overly worry about it. Are we good to talk about parks? Okay, great. Although, David, if you want to stay on because we're still talking about the parks. Yeah, thank you so much for this great work and for coming today. Really appreciate it. And if you want to stay on, listen and talk about parks, that'd be great. If not, you're free to go, of course. Whatever you want.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you could come by. In terms of parks then,
Thank you, David.
are there any updates on the gardens at Eagle and Sycamore? Yeah, Helen.
Yes. I went out to Sycamore Park when Porter, sorry.
Oh, she's coming.
Wow. When Porter had 2 volunteers, I think I'm trying to remember who these volunteers were. It doesn't really matter. She had 2 young strapping volunteers, and the 3 of them cut out all of the sumac in the pollinator garden at Sycamore Park.
Oh, nice.
I mean, in the past, we've just cut them sort of at ground level or a foot above, and they just sprout right back. So they went out with shovels and pickaxes and
cool.
dug them out. So that was the majority of the weed that existed out there. So once they were removed, it's interesting. The plants that are out there that have survived are really tall. These are asters and liatris and some black-eyed Susans, and they're all 5, 6, 7 feet tall. So I think when most people think of a pollinator garden, they think of this little knee-high thing that you wander through and look at the pollinators. This is kind of feral. It's a feral pollinator garden. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I think these plants were shaded or are shaded, and they have to grow tall they're competing for sunlight. Whether removing the sumac will help for next year, I don't know. But while we were out there, we looked at the fence, which is in pretty bad shape and looks very awful. And she wondered, do we even need it? Why is the fence there? And I thought a lot of it was to keep people out while the plants were very small. I'm not so worried about deer and other animals because they can just enter through the back that doesn't have any fencing. But it also marked where the garden is, and therefore anyone who's mowing knows not to mow it. So I am tempted to suggest that we remove the fence, but then we need to make sure that the landscaping people don't.
What if you take down the fence and leave the poles? That won't look super great, but then it still marks off the area.
Yeah, it's a start. Yeah.
Doesn't look like a fence is falling down.
Right.
You could put you could have poles with a sign that says pollinator garden.
Right. So that leads to another issue of signage. She had the volunteer that she hired two years ago, made a prototype pollinator garden sign, but never printed it up. I now have a copy of that, but I don't know what to do with it. Where do people get signs printed up? How will it be paid for? I think we only need one at the first corner that you come to. But I don't know the process of.
I think that Porter she has those trail network signs. They're about the size of a piece of paper, and they're on some kind of like metal-y plastic back, right? I think she said that they were pretty cheap and that the woman was great, but did she work slow? Is that am I remembering that right? So maybe Porter could help with that. I think that she had recommended something in the last meeting about that.
Okay. And do we have some funds that would cover probably less than?
Well, that's the weird problem right now, right? Is I don't know what budget year this big expense is going to go on. So hopefully that goes on last year's budget if we're allowed to put that on there, because we approved it last year and she did the work last year,
right? But
she still hasn't billed us. So I'm hopeful that goes last year, and that means we have 300 now, but I don't know.
Okay.
If it does go into this year, we could pop it over into the Edith Stock Fund Trust if we need
to. That's a perfect use for Edith Stock Fund.
Yeah.
If you ask me.
Yeah. Sorry, Chris, was that, I don't know what you're trying to say.
That's what I was going to say, is there's the Edith Stock Funds. Yeah.
So why don't I work on getting a sign printed, and I'll pay for it, and then we'll figure out what to do from there.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah, because I think we'll have Edith Stock Trust pay for it. Because it's in that park, and we have all the bird boxes in that park and all that work already. So it's completely keeping with what we've tried to use that for. So, and that's fine.
Yep. Right.
Cool. Okay. The other one, is that everything you want to talk about with the pollinator garden, Helen?
Does anyone want to go out there and help me roll up all the fencing? And I'm trying to remember if that's my fencing or Jono's fencing or what I should do with that fencing.
It was someone like loaned it, gave it, because it was in
I think it might be mine, but I know that when we were done,
might
John
be.
loaded a lot into the back of his truck, so I don't know. I just don't know. I don't really need it. I don't need it, but I definitely don't want to throw it away. Does
I don't-
anyone need a whole bunch of fencing?
I don't recall that it was mine, but that was a while back, so I can't be sure.
Okay.
But I can help you.
Okay. I think maybe what we might do is just go roll it up and tuck it away. It won't fit in my car. I mean, I have a Prius. We need a truck or something to put it in. But we could at least make it very easy to transport.
Yeah,
Great.
it might fit in mine. I don't, depending on how big it is.
Okay.
To see.
Is it chicken wire, Helen? What is the
Yeah.
material?
It's not the skinny octagonal chicken wire. It's rectangular squares.
Oh, sort of probably more for gardens.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Nancy, I'll email you and we'll try to find a time. Great.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I was just trying to look through like old emails if I could find anything, if it is Helen's, but I think it is. I don't know. Or whoever wants it, frankly.
Well, I know I had a whole bunch and I brought it and I was glad to finally be done with it. So I don't know if I want to put it right back where it came from. So if anyone would like it, let me know.
Okay. That sounds great.
Okay, so we'll leave up the green rebarish posts and just roll up the fencing. That's great.
I think at least for now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any update on the Eagle Park garden? There was the whole idea we would like dig it up at some point. Is that still happening?
So the construction has been delayed. There is an email sent. Masterson was the one that was selected to do that work, and they are busy up in the Route 125 gap above, between Ripton and East Middlebury. So they need to finish there before they can come to Eagle Park. I don't have a response from the engineer about when that revised schedule will be yet.
Okay.
Regardless, I think at this point we're starting to get into the time period where it's not great to be moving perennials and establishing them somewhere. So I'm thinking that it's likely that, unfortunately, construction will be delayed until next year. And so we would punt a little bit on moving perennials. The other thing to note is that Dave Henderson reminded me that we have funds that were donated in memory of Pete Domenico that are designed to be used for improvements at Eagle Park around the repairs to the universal fishing platform, and somewhere in the order of 4,000. And so those funds potentially could be used to help refurbish that perennial garden after construction.
That's awesome. Okay, great.
Wow.
Oh, I forgot about all that. This is why we need a treasurer. Sometimes we keep track of everything.
Well,
okay.
Those funds are being held by the Addison County River Watch Collaborative.
Okay.
So they're not in the towns.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
Would they be able to do the work in the winter, or is it probably pushed to spring, summer?
They actually had permit windows between, I believe it was August 1st and October 1st. So unless they were able to get the permit window extended, it's unlikely that it would happen this year, and it may be forced to be in that same permit window next construction season. They have to wait till the rivers are down low in order to access.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
It makes me think that when I make a pollinator garden sign, I'll make two. And we'll put one up in Eagle Park as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a pollinator garden? I'm asking.
Sure.
I don't know what it is.
Sure.
Any garden.
Perennial garden with lots of flowers.
So if you call it a pollinator garden, who's to argue, right?
flowers, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, might as well make two, I like it. Okay, speaking of signage then, Porter had asked us to think about future signage ideas. She also sent me an email, asking about that. She says, I will be getting some draft suggested park sign. Oh, she says, sorry, she can't meet us this week. She'll be out of town, but she wanted me to say, as Porter, I will be getting some draft suggested park signage from the TA pilot project, but haven't received it yet. I have some templates to propose and some guidance on content and format. I hope to have it by next month. So we can think about ideas if we want, or we can table that until we can think about those signs next month. Your choice. Helen, does nodding mean table it, or does that mean you want to talk about it?
Let's see what she comes up with.
Okay. Okay. I will put a note that says we'll wait for November on that, tabled. Okay, the other thing, I'm going out of order, I'm sorry, is the continued discussion of the accessible town parks. We had told Porter that we would think about it and talk about it again. And I was wondering if anyone had thought about it and wanted to share any thoughts, or if you wanted to wait and have a conversation about this in November or December, or kind of why you're thinking about that.
I like the
Go ahead.
the brief plan that she showed us. I liked it. I thought that was a good idea. I feel like it would be nice to have a place that is accessible fully for people to go to.
I'm concerned, the one that she fleshed out in most detail in figures for us was Eagle Park. And it substantially changes the nature of that park. I'm completely understanding and sympathetic and supportive of areas that are accessible for people in wheelchairs or with walkers or any mobility issues. But she had transformed the front third of the park into something that looks like the green. And it just seemed excessive. So I know she's excited about this, and I suspect she can probably get money to make this happen. But I think we have to decide what we want it to look like. That these parks are not Porters to play with, that we are supposed to be managing and monitoring these parks. And I think we should give it serious thought as to what we want it to look like.
I think, Helen, my recollection is that the statement that Porter was trying to make was that the artist rendering it conveyed sort of more of an open view, because you wouldn't be able to see it as well without that on the sort of ground level. If it was more of an aerial, it might have shown more trees and other stuff. So I would think that that's certainly open to discussion. I don't think it was an absolute that it was going to be, I don't know, in the direction of more denuded than forested. Does anybody else remember that? I don't know.
Yeah, I was saying that and then realized I was muted. I don't know how much Porter had to do with that rendering in that regard. Like, I don't think that's would be something she's hung up on at all. And that was certainly the impression I got from what she said.
Do you think it's within our rights or responsibilities to see any proposals that she submits that have any drawings or plans and approve them rather than?
I think that's absolutely our job. I think.
Okay.
If we have, I don't know what exactly our job is, but I feel like that's it.
That's the next thing we're going to talk about. We're on that.
Yeah, I think we should absolutely be in on every step there, and that we should. I think my impulse is similar to yours, Helen. I'm totally on board with the mission, and I want to make sure we balance it with not de-wilding our parks any further than they have to be, and that we make sure that we're all cognizant of every step. And I think that's like, I think that's exactly what Porter will want too. I don't think we'll have any problem.
We have a public comment, which is unusual. Do you wanna?
One thing you guys have to remember is your original mission statement. Go by that. Don't let outside influences dictate what you should and shouldn't do. And above all, before you do anything, run it by the select board, because they're very, very in tune to our public parks. And I think they've had a few discussions the past few meetings concerning just that. So, although everybody wants to have everything done right, you don't want to go overboard.
Yeah.
You know, let's be careful. As far as monies, you ought to check with Valerie, because sometimes if there's a small amount, they can finance it for you. If it's a small amount of money, Valerie has the authority to allow so much money used for it.
Cool, thank you. Do you want to hear that? Cool.
Yes,
Kristen,
thank you.
did you wanna?
I was just gonna say that I did review our 3 management plans for Eagle Park, Sycamore, and Memorial, and I proposed some language in there, and it very much mirrors what's being said here, that we're in favor of accessibility, but it needs to be balanced with our mission to protect our sensitive or natural resources of these parks. And also in some cases, it needs to be, it's constrained by deed restrictions that might be in place because these properties were bought out after floods. So I did change the language in the plans, and I can share that if that's.
That'd be great, yeah.
We want to do that right now. Let's see.
Or you could share it like with us and for the next draft or something, that's fine too, if you want to bring it up. Personally, I think my concerns mirror that. I'm worried about the continued maintenance. Certainly we've seen maintenance issues now at Eagle. We've seen maintenance issues at Memorial. I am very reticent to put anything, frankly, we've had maintenance issues with the pollinator garden, right? So I worry about what is the future of these projects and how do we maintain them in perpetuity, and how do we do that in a modern framework where we see these river disturbances are not that infrequent that they may be human history, or we would imagine they are, right? You know, what control do we have for maintenance after disturbance, as well as regular, you know, scheduled maintenance? And I don't know that we have any maintenance plans really in place for any of the parks, and so I'm worried to put anything in. I was just walking past the kiosk at Sycamore on Tuesday, and I thought, oh man, that even the kiosk isn't really maintained. And Pete put those up, and what's our long-term plan for the kiosk? Like, how are we going to keep a kiosk going, right? So just anything, I worry about that. And you know, how much these, you know, like Eagle, for example, how much would that be used anyway? You know, we have the river, and that's an attraction, but walking in the loop around the grassy part of Eagle, because you can't see the river from there because of knotweed, I don't know that that would be used that much for the amount of maintenance and effort it would take to maintain it when we know we can't maintain what we have already. And so I have a lot of concerns about that portion of the proposal, just as a personal thought. Kristen, did you have language you want to show us? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it can be really quick here.
I can make sure that you can try to share.
It says host disabled.
Yeah, I got. Yeah, well, it's, you know, it's the town. I didn't set it up. All right, there you go.
I'll start with Sycamore. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
So it's really, this is under statement of current issues. This is a draft for select board review that if you all approve, I would forward it to them after tonight's meeting. This just says at present, access to Sycamore Park by those who are differently abled is somewhat challenging. Footpaths are not necessarily ADA compliant. However, there's strong potential to improve accessibility. It's mostly level. There's a path system built on past gravel driveways. Bristol Trail Network has secured a grant to evaluate the potential to improve accessibility and identify funding. Enhanced accessibility at the park should be considered within the constraints of any deed restrictions on new development that were associated with the bio's property following the 1998 goals for enhanced accessibility should be balanced against conservation goals for the park's sensitive resources and recognize the high likelihood of future flooding at the park.
That's nicely stated.
That's good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. And then I did add under management objectives, enhancements to accessibility of the park should be pursued whenever possible, just as we are pursuing educational access and so forth. So that's really the only change I made on that one. When it comes down to our responsibilities, I didn't really make any changes there. So similarly, let's see, for Eagle Park, at present access is challenging due to the repairs pending, but also the greater park area beyond the UFP. Potential to improve access. And then the language is the same. Bristol Network has a grant, but it should be balanced within these constraints and against conservation goals. And the same statement here that it's enabling language for accessibility, but should be considered with these other constraints. And finally, Memorial Park is a little bit different beast. And because it's a very steep park and it doesn't necessarily make sense for improvements at that park to make it accessible to those who are challenged with mobility issues. There's some limited potential to improve access by modifying the parking area and establishing a wheelchair accessible picnic area off the south end of the parking area. Goals should be balanced against conservation goals for the park's sensitive resources. So those were the three changes to those three plans that I was proposing. And if you all think those are reasonable, I could then forward all three plans to Valerie for the select board's approval.
Good.
Or review and approval, I should say.
Yeah. Okay, so where do we stand with the management plans right now? Where were they last approved? I'm just losing track of our timeline here.
No, that's a good point. The only plan that has been approved officially by the select board is Sycamore Park, the old version.
Old one.
Since then, I wrote a Memorial Park plan that we all discussed and forwarded for their approval. They had a few changes and wanted to table their approval. I made those changes, sent it back. They haven't had a meeting to discuss it. Same Eagle Park, we've presented to them once. Now I've made this change so we can update that and send it back to them. They have not seen yet the revision to the Sycamore Park plan, which is fairly substantial. So, I mean, this is an opportunity maybe to send all three back to them for approval all at once.
And then the work that David's doing, for example, is it worth waiting 2 or 3 months to put in? At this site, we've seen the following things. Is that something that would be in there? I remember hauling up with a botanical survey. I don't remember.
It would be an appendix to that report, to the Sycamore Park report. My personal thought is I don't think it's worth waiting because every time we wait, there could be something else we're waiting for. And so we would never get a plan approved, essentially.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And the Sycamore Park plan is a pretty substantial revision of the one they approved back in 2008, I think it was, already, because so much has gone on there in that time period. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing all those, and that's been a big task. I know. Thank you for helping with that. That would be wonderful. Do people want to approve that? Do we feel good about that? Do you want to vote on it? Okay, do we want a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Great.
second.
What's your motion? What's your
Okay.
motion?
Oh, this is the hard part.
Whatever you want.
Okay, I make
It's
a
already approved.
motion to approve the changes to the town plan drafts, to send them to the select board for review and
Management plan.
something. Management plan. To send them to the select board for review and approval.
All those in favor? Oh, no, is it seconded?
Second.
John
I'll second.
seconded? It's first and seconded, I lost track. Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Seconded it?
I think if John, wait, if you make the motion, then someone has to second the motion, or do we have to first the motion, then second the motion? I think it's just okay. I think you firsted it and John seconded it.
Yeah.
And then Alex just jumped on.
Third.
He thirded it, and then it was and then it's approved by a verbal vote.
Unanimous.
Okay, great. So thank you for that, Kristen. Thank you so much for doing all that work. And that language you just whipped up for that was really good.
Okay, I'll send those on to Valerie tomorrow morning.
Great, thank you. And then about this continued discussion of accessible town parks as presented by Porter. Should we have her back to talk about signage and maybe discuss some of our concerns about the opportunities that she's presented?
Yeah.
Would that be appropriate?
Yeah. Did we, I can't remember, did we get into the idea of earmarking funds or securing funds for maintenance as being sort of a prerequisite for this kind of project last time? I can't remember if we talked about that or not, because it seems, if we didn't, it seems like something that we ought to bring up, the idea that like we're totally into this, at least if I'm reading everybody right, we're into this on the idea that but concerned about future maintenance, and that setting aside funding for, that's obviously that as well, but I think that seems to me like an easier problem to get around. But the funding issue and making sure we're securing long-term funding for maintenance might ought to be a hurdle that has to be crossed before we go into this.
Right. I think also, as we just said about in the management plan, right, and balancing conservation goals with, how would that look? What would that be? I think we need to be careful with that too.
That would, it just seems to me like I would imagine that Porter is as on board with that as we are, and that feels like something we can get around and find compromise on. Maybe just being optimistic, but I think that I just kind of feel that way. It's the money part that worries me. The money part for 20 years from now, that.
But I think you're right that as Porter is writing grants to support these changes that she's proposing, she can't just load the maintenance onto the town or to our committee. There has to be a plan in place, a financial plan that will pay for that maintenance.
Right. And I think
Typically with conservation type projects, there's often what's called a stewardship fund. So that can be anything from a basic monitoring to make sure that certain things are going on with easements and so on, or something maybe more substantial. So maybe it's not necessarily stewardship that would be the title, but I think the point is well made that some level of maintenance costs are possibly included as a trust, so they're available.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for, scheduled regular maintenance as well as disturbance, because I think, Eagle Park and Memorial have been really eye-opening, and I just am so worried about ending up in another situation like that at even more parks.
Yeah, I think have her at the next meeting.
Yeah.
The
next
idea
meeting-
of one thing, I mean, just
Oh, please.
the really, and I think we did talk about this last time, but really emphasizing the fact that whatever gets done has to be low maintenance inherently too. Like that's got to be part of the plan. And I think like again, I think this came up last time that a lot of the trail surfaces and so on that she's talking about would kind of inherently be low maintenance and fairly good in flooding situations, but making that very clear that needs to be part of the plan and part of the it's part of the plan going forward.
Yeah, I was just at Sycamore all week. I've been in rivers around Vermont with my class talking about, oh my God, look at how disturbed these ecosystems are. Look at how the river moves. Look at the sand across that field. That's where the river used to be, right? And I'm just very heightened awareness on that issue of like, how do you stop the force of water from destroying whatever it is that you've put in place there in these areas with really active rivers, right? I'm so visceral because that's all I've talked about every afternoon for a week, and all I'll talk about for the next week. That's like all we're doing. And I'm going to grade papers on that topic, right? And so I'm just like thinking that so much, just the awesome force of water and like, how do you control it? Which obviously you can't, so I don't know. But yeah, so I'll invite Porter, see if she can come in November. If not, December. November, we have our new grants writer. The new grant writer for the town is going to join us in November. So she picked that date to come see us. That was one of our lists of possible future topics, and so she's going to come in for that. So please, for next month, and it's a little bit of a tangent, but for next month, make sure you come in with any ideas or any questions for her, because that'll be our first big point of business, I think, is to talk to her. Okay, great. So if we're good on that topic, we can move to the town plan check-in. Is everyone okay with that? All right, great. So let's move on to the town plan check-in. So thinking about what are our goals, we skirted that issue a couple times now in this meeting already, which is great timing. If you're interested in what our commission is focused on, if you look at our webpage, you can see our purposes are listed there, as well as our bylaws. And that has lots of, the bylaws also have mention about purposes and goals of this commission. And so those are all, I think, really, really important to look through. We also were charged in the town plan from 2020 with several different implementation items. And so I was wondering if people had a chance to look through those and think about where we stand on some of those things. There was also that sheet that Kevin Hansen has sent a few times that had like, right after it came out, or after the town plan came out, every quarter he would email me and say, how far have you done on all of these? But he hasn't sent that in quite some time. So I could look for one of those now and see if I can find one of those. If someone else wants to talk about the town plan while I look for that, that'd be fine. Or I can just look for it. I'm just gonna look for it then. If anyone has one, I don't know who we even emailed it all to. Damn it. I was not well prepared for this, sorry. But we can just look through the list here in the town plan. Maybe, shoot, can someone share it with us that has it open? Because I don't have anything open on the other, like see, I've got a computer, and then there's also the computer that you're seeing this through. So it's really hard for me to actually reach that computer. Kristen, would that be possible? Did you just share your screen to share the town plan?
Yeah, I just need to go back to the link real quick.
Okay, great. Yeah, I found that if I just like find like Conservation Commission, that worked pretty well. To sort of look through like where we mentioned basically.
You emailed us the link.
I did, yeah. It's also just like if you type in Bristol, Vermont 2020 town plan, it's like the first thing on Google that comes up.
The link was in the also with the attachment for the agenda in that last email from Carolyn.
Yeah.
And then I think she references page 129.
Yeah, that's where the table starts, yeah. Although we're mentioned in the goals before that, starting on page 99. Under goals and policy, the first goal is to conserve natural features and resources that provide a significant benefit to the general public and rare, protected, threatened, and endangered species, significant natural communities, and existing wilderness areas. And that's the top of page 99. And it says that they plan to do that consulting with and supported by the efforts of the Bristol Conservation Commission. That's the first goal that's listed there. Okay.
Top of page 99?
Oh
Or
boy.
is it
Yeah.
PDF page 99?
You know what? That's a great question. It's probably PDF page 9. No, it's actual page 9.
Yeah.
What the?
Mine is 99.
I know. Wait. That one says final draft 2020. Oh, yeah, that says final draft. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. Why don't I just, maybe I can see if I can get it on this one.
Is there sorry, what section was it again? Maybe I can just go to there.
Goals and policies.
Oh, you know what? It's probably of a certain chapter though.
Yeah.
What if could you just search for the word Conservation Commission?
Yep.
The environment.
There, that's what I'm looking at. That's goal 1. Yep, that's the first mention in this document as well of the Conservation Commission. So that says that's the first goal that they want us to look at. And that's in the natural resources chapter, which makes sense. That's one of the goals of that chapter. And these are all the goals of that chapter of how we're going to deal with these things. We're specifically mentioned in that one, but all of these things are sort of something that Bristol strives to do and in the end of this chapter. We also are listed specifically as increasing education and community awareness. And I think this is already something that we're working with through this Middlebury College thing, I think is going to be something we can think about for that.
And goal 2, the movement of wildlife. That's
Oh yeah,
kind of
nice.
what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The end of goal 2.
And then I think there's these action tasks, and then that starts in that big table, which is on page 129 in the final version, which I'm sure we can find just by doing it. There we go. Great. So this is listed as scenic and historical cultural resources to identify significant public scenic resources. And that's a 5-year plan. Anyone have any idea how we're going to do that one?
So, Karen, this is a question that I've been meaning to ask that may go long, and it may be a bigger question than we have time for, but it plays into this because there is a property in Bristol that I don't think we should speak about it specifically because it's not yet for sale, but that I've been communicating with the Nature Conservancy about. That in my mind, like it is a very significant property, both in that the public uses it a lot. It's unlike a lot of the other public land around the town of Bristol, but also is home to a lot of critters that are not widely found outside of this particular area. And I've been, I've just been exchanging emails with a fellow from the Nature Conservancy who's sort of the job is to have projects like that on his radar. And I wonder a little bit whether it would be more useful for me to be communicating with him as a member of the Bristol Conservation Commission, for instance, than just Alex, a guy. But obviously don't want to throw that out there if it's not like what people feel like our job is. But in some ways, reading that, that first task of ours, or our first, the first goal we just looked at, that very much is what we're tasked with. So how involved in that kind of thing do we want to be? It seems like in some ways it would be the best possible use of our time, but they're also, it's kind of in some ways outside of at least my purview, and I think a lot of our purview. So what are your guys' feelings about that?
Well, we certainly have had a history of doing that. There have been a number of conservation projects that have come to the attention of one or more members of the board, and there's a delicate balance there. And I don't know if you have communicated with the current landowner. I think that's really important to do as well, rather than a group from the public discussing a person's property, and the public values that may be present on that personal property. But I think we should always have a dialogue with the landowner first and foremost.
Certainly.
But so there is a precedent for this Conservation Commission to have identified parcels for conservation, and then at some point when the landowner is willing, it can become a public discussion as a member of the Conservation Commission and be on the agenda of a Conservation Commission meeting. And then you start to contact agencies that have funding resources available for those conservation projects. But there's definitely a precedent there.
Yeah.
Kristen, is this the kind of thing that you would be willing to mentor Alex on, since it isn't something that he's familiar with but seems passionate about?
Sure. I mean, and we've done this with properties that were conserved through Vermont Land Trust, but also Vermont River Conservancy and other entities. So yeah, I'd be happy to work with Alex or anyone who's interested.
Yeah, I'll send you an email, Kristen. It'd be interesting to talk about this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I sort of read this line, though, the significant public scenic resources. I kind of read it differently. Like, are there view sheds that we want to protect?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, can you tell us a little bit? I don't know if you were part of the Conservation Commission, but I think there was a push that I think it was like John Elder and others made with what's that, the gateway to town, right?
Oh, the northern gateway to Bristol?
Yeah, was that something the Conservation Commission was involved with a while ago? Is that right?
Yes, that was a project that was identified by a number of citizens, but also with the involvement of the Vermont Land Trust. And there were two key farm owners in the valley that's north of Bristol, along between Bristol Village and Route 116 and 17, Up Gap. So that's the Bob Fuller farm to the north, and previously the Farr farm, which is now the Gateway, Bristol Gateway farm. And so those, the Vermont Land Trust came to the Conservation Commission and asked if we would be a partner in fundraising for that effort, but also to kind of shepherd those conservation projects through local approvals at the planning board level and the select board level. And so that was 2014, I think, ish, 14, 15. And so those two parcels are now conserved with Vermont Land Trust.
And then, Alex, if you're interested in these kind of topics, I would also suggest that you look at our webpage. On there is a PDF under documentation that says Conservation Reserve Fund information that has some examples of times when the Bristol Conservation Commission was able to use that Conservation Reserve Fund to leverage funding and to help with land transactions. And so there's a couple different instances, like the Saunders River access and the adjacent property where we use that funding. I'm sure others that I don't even remember, but that's one that is listed specifically where the money is tracked, and explains like how that money would be spent and how the Bristol Conservation Commission partnered with, I think it was the Vermont Area Land Trust, is that right?
Vermont River Conservancy.
Conservancy, that's right, yeah. And that's explained in that document too. And so I think that, yeah, as Kristen said, if it's private property, we won't talk about someone's private property in a public meeting without talking to the private people. So, but I'm sure that, Kristen has had the most experience of anyone I know, much less on the commission in these matters. And I'm sure you could talk about that, to see where that goes.
Yeah, we'll do.
Cool, thank you for whatever it is we're talking about. But it sounds like you're very passionate about it, whatever it is. And so that is
Could be cool.
That's how we feel about it. Great.
And hopefully this will come back to Bristol Conservation Commission as it deemed appropriate. So that I just want to make sure this is not an Alex Kristen project and we never hear about it.
Yeah.
No, certainly, of course.
Yeah, if it's appropriate, of course, then we'd love to publicly talk about whatever it is. Yeah.
I guess so. Maybe the crux of my question is that if I'm conversing with the landowner about the possibility of this moving forwards in some way, some capacity, can I do that as a member of the Bristol Conservation Commission, or should I remain Alex the person?
You should tell that landowner that you are operating as a citizen of Bristol at this moment until they are willing to allow you to discuss it in a Bristol Conservation Commission meeting, and you would then understand if you have the consensus of the commission behind you in your stuff. It's a delicate kind of a situation because you want to be respectful of everyone involved. And
yeah, of course, right.
I mean, clearly they will know that you are a member of the Conservation Commission, but you just make it clear that you haven't discussed it with the commission, so you don't know if you have the consensus of the commission behind you.
Right.
Certainly, though, if you have something that you think plays into these goals, that would be, all the more reason that we would support something that would support these goals for the town plan, that the town would support that. But I have no idea what we're talking about, so so let's leave it there, I think, for now. Let's see what else we would be, they're asking us to focus on. We only have a few minutes left. I know people have things to do. So we have some health and recreation and healthy living ideas, and in partnership with Select Board and Rec Department, of maintaining existing public facilities and outdoor spaces to encourage social and leisure time activities among town residents. And that's an ongoing goal. And then there's a whole bunch for the next time. Yeah, there we go, that next sheet. So you can see there's several of these now. I think almost every single item under natural resource and forest blocks lists the Conservation Commission, I'm pretty sure, as one of the things. So one of the things that now we can actually say, this is the 2020 town plan, and it is 2023, and after 3 years, by George, we've done it on time, 3 years, and all those plans have been sent to the Select Board for number 6. So I'm pretty excited that we actually did something that was listed on this list. But other things you can read for yourself that we're supposed to be working on. In terms of minimizing invasive species, that's one of the things that Lewis Creek Association wants us to do. They want us to send them pictures and locations of knotweed. So maybe we can, I'll forward that to you. Maybe that's one of those things that actually lines up with goal number 2 that we could think about with Lewis Creek. We talked about, education materials for landowners about what endangered species, or how we develop management plans for those sites. I don't know that we know about rare, threatened, or endangered species at any of our town parks that have management plans. That'd be convenient to roll it into one, but I don't know about any of that off the top of my head.
So far, there have not been any based on my review of the state mapping of those.
Okay. Drat, that would have been an easy way to do it. But maintain improving public access to the New Haven River, Baldwin Creek and Bristol Ponds. Certainly we've already done some cleanup efforts over, we've encouraged cleanup. I know Alex is working on cleaning up some of those areas. We're hoping to have a future meeting with, about the dumping issue with Addison County Addison Solid Waste Management District and the Sheriff's Department possibly. Let's see, hiking trails, low impact biking and hiking trails. That's something that, the Bristol Trail Network has touched base with us at various points. And create valuable opportunities to conserve lands with high resource value, which is through purchase. And that's something that Alex was alluding to just a minute ago as one of our stated goals. Thoughts? Sounds good. We also have one item under flood resilience. Number 8 lists consideration of river corridor conservation and protection measures to decrease flood erosion losses and increase flood resiliency and discourage additional infrastructure in the river corridor area. We haven't done much with this recently, although I know we've gone to various meetings and tried to talk about this and have gotten some stronger language put in place about some of these things at times. But honestly, with the loss of Pete and others, we haven't done as much as we used to with the river. We used to have a lot of people that spent a lot of time in the river and near the river on the commission, and that was a high priority. But I've seen that that's sort of shifted over time. So something to keep our eyes on as well. I think that's the last one under this table. So that's the town plan goals. So just things to think about as we're thinking about like maybe new things to start talking about or different goals or perspectives. So keep in mind that these are the town plan actions. They will be asking us in 18 months or so. Hey, what have you done? And what's ready for the next 2025 plan? So just keep that on our radar, I think. Thoughts, comments? Okay, cool. Well, in that case then, back to the agenda. Town plan check-in was accomplished. We're good? Everyone seems good? Okay, great. And then in terms of events upcoming, Addison County Conservation Commission Summit is November 4th from 8:45 to 12:30 in Holly Hall. I don't think I'll be able to make that date, unfortunately, but it sounds pretty cool and it's really local. And if anyone is going, would love to hear a report back at our November meeting as to what happened. Does anyone think they will be able to attend that?
Can you send more information about it?
All I have is one forwarded email. Yeah.
Wow.
Heidi, who was taking the RSVPs, may have some more information. I did RSVP, so I'm intending to make it unless something comes up. Heidi Willis, I think is her name.
Yeah.
It was on noted as a contact on one of Carolyn's emails.
Yeah, I'll forward this. Who wants a copy? I'm sending it right now. Who wants a forward copy of everything I have about this?
I'll do it, I'll take.
You want a copy? Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else want it? Nancy,
I'll-
want it?
Carolyn,
I'll
put me
take it. Hopefully it's a review.
Okay, right now I'm sending it to Helen, John, and Nancy. Anyone else want it?
Jono as well, please.
Oh, John, too, yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm saying that right now. Anyone else? That's it? Helen, John, Nancy, John, you're all getting a copy of this right now. There you go. Okay, that's everything I know about it. Okay, great. But yeah, unfortunately, that's a bad day for me. Okay, let's see. Last meeting, we had a few different things for like work events and meeting, and we did almost all of them, or they were canceled. So that was really cool. So that's the only meeting we have. That's our event that's planned. Next meeting will be November 9th. And I think at that meeting, we will have our grant writer come. We'll invite Porter, and we can do a debrief of the Addison County Conservation Commission Summit from the 4th. Sound good? Okay, any last thoughts?
I may have missed it because I got on a little
Yeah.
bit late, but I'm gathering that you approved the minutes.
We did, yes.
All right, wonderful. They look great. Thank you again, Zeely. Bailey.
Okay, if that's the last thing anyone thinks about at the moment, then let's, should we make a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Okay,
Adjourn.
you'd like to make a motion to adjourn? Would I like to second that motion?
Second.
Helen seconded it, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now adjourned. Have a nice night, we'll see you in November.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.